Okay, next up is Chapter 2 in Bayonetta for Xbox 360. So in this chapter, you meet up with Jeanne. I believe that's how you say her name. And this cool little cinematic here, pretty violent, but very cool to watch. And the violence in this game is something I think that's worth talking about. Something that I'll kind of touch on a little later is the fact that it isn't so dead serious as something like, let's say, God of War. There is a lot of tongue-in-cheekness to this game, and it's I think what keeps it from going over the edge into something that's just violent for the sake of being violent or overly sexual for its own sake. There's a lot of, I guess, posturing in this game, but like I said, I think most of it is just really tongue-in-cheek, and these characters know they're not to be reckoned with, and I like that about them. I think that gives them almost a free license to be the way they are, and it gives them a bit of a pass in how silly some of the dialogue is and how overt things can be. So I like that about this game, and I think that gives it a lot of character and sets it apart from other action games of similar style. And so in this, you're learning how to witch walk, which allows you to run onto walls and ceilings, and it can be pretty disorienting, but it does add a no pun intended, a new dimension to the gameplay and strategy of these fights, so that you're not just sitting on the ground and jumping. You can go in full 3 dimensions, which I think is a nice touch. And right here, you're on the side of this building, which is pretty disorienting, and then you run into this new enemy surrounded by the disturbing cherub heads with wings and halos. So here's another angel. Let's see what it says here. Deer and decorations. So I won't show the fight, but yeah, the guy's head opens up. Kind of gross. And this right here I thought was interesting. It's something I wasn't ready for, is that during cinematics, enemies will initiate attacks, and when it goes back into gameplay, you have to be ready to evade. And so I totally messed up there, and I'm assuming if you're going for the non-stop climax pure platinum run, that right there could get you if you're not ready for it and you have to start over. Now this right here is something that took me way longer than it does in this video. I was sitting in this area for probably close to 15 minutes trying to figure out what to do, and I know it had to do with that statue at the beginning and going into witch time, but it wasn't made very clear to me early on that there is a timer that counts down from 10 to 0, and that allows you time to get somewhere else in the area and initiate it. So I kept initiating it at the statue and trying to run back to that wall and blast through it before the clock ran out, but obviously you can't do that, and you have to go through a technique where you initiate it, run all the way back to that wall, and then execute it, and then you'll have enough time to blast through. So that wasn't made clear, and it took a long time, and I hate to admit it, but I had to look it up. So that to me just feels like a missed opportunity in making that be more intuitive for the player. And looking online, I wasn't the only one that got stuck there, and that's not good happening this early in the game. And so this part, I believe the cinematic I just skipped or talked all the way through was the introduction of character Luca, who tries to be a ladies' man but is not very good at it. But his story, which is in another cutscene that I cut out, is kind of tragic. So I didn't want to put that in here in case anyone watching hasn't played through this. So this right here, though, I left this entire battle intact, and one of the reasons why I did that is because this particular recording was done after I had died probably 3 or 4 times in this here area. And so once I got through it, I felt a pretty tremendous sense of accomplishment, and that I made it through, and I didn't take too much damage. I think my health bar is around half by the time I'm done with this. But compared to the previous playthroughs where I just got my ass handed to me, frankly, this showed me that, hey, I am learning and I am getting used to the various signals that the enemies give off before their attacks. And I think it did show and make me feel like I'm actually learning something, and I think that is very similar to a fighting game. Fighting games are very I think the progression is linear. It's a linear slope in that you make small adjustments and improvements here and there, and you get better and better slowly. So I think that that does ring true here in this game. So I'm really happy with that. And in addition to making me want to check out more Platinum games, it's making me want to play more fighting games, just because of the amount of, I guess, reward you feel for dedicating yourself to playing and mastery of a game. And something that is in this area that I really like, and it kind of is a repeat of what I said earlier about the game's humor, is when you torture some of those enemies and you're about to send them into that grinder, or their head gets chopped off in the guillotine. When the head gets chopped off, the rest of their body goes into this really funny sort of comic pose that again gives those really low-level characters a sense of personality, and it's funny. I mean, it doesn't make me feel bad for doing it, but it is funny, and again, it gives this game its humor and that tongue-in-cheek feel that I mentioned earlier. So I really like it. And so here you beat that big guy, about 3/4 of his life goes away, and then he takes off, and I believe you do have to fight him later. So take care of the rest of the enemies and open that gate. And those chests, these chests where you get these special items, they do take quite a few hits to open, and I think that's kind of interesting. You don't just click A or whatever, the action button, to open them. And again, there are these little quick time events that happen, and this one happens to give you an achievement. But you have to be paying attention. You have to be paying attention during all of the cinematics, because like here, he comes down and attacks you, and you take damage if you don't evade. So you can't just be sitting around not watching these things happen, because you will either have to do something like that, or you'll have to hit a button to jump or spin the analog stick. So you do have to be paying attention. A little bit of a clipping error there with his sashes. And so I won't show this battle either, but you got to fight both those guys at the same time. And so once you take them out, you do your finishing climax attack one more time. So right here. And I like this one in particular, since they have sort of a first-person view out of the mouth of that creature. And unfortunately, I'm not getting the full combos on those, just because I wasn't ready to hit the button. But yeah, the game just looks really nice. They did a good job with the hair effects, and especially when you go into witch time and during the fights. Particle effects in this game are just gorgeous. So here you get your second weapon, which I believe is a sword, the Shuraba. And then right here is another example of the time-based puzzle. And so you have to go click on that statue and then activate this before the timer runs out, and then hit this wall to activate it to create a bridge. So it's interesting. Very light puzzle elements in the game, and I mentioned in my previous video that I didn't think they were very good, and I guess they sort of get the job done and break up the action a little bit, but yeah. So here you're at the end boss for this particular chapter, giant dragon head. And he's kind of stuck in the wall right there. But after you do enough damage to him, it switches views, and you'll see that it's a two-headed dragon. So right here, I believe it pulls out, the camera pulls out, and yeah, you're in a much bigger battle now. So things shake around you, things go crazy, and then, okay, now you're in a room floating in the sky with this two-headed dragon creature that I believe you fought earlier in the level, or it might have been the last chapter. And so here's what I was talking about with the quick time event. You have to jump, otherwise it's an instant death, which is kind of cheap, but it is what it is. Spin this around and you throw it into a dragon, and that ends the chapter. So that is chapter 2. Pretty fun, but some puzzle elements that kind of annoyed me, and I hope that they get better from here on out. Anyway, thanks for hanging out, and see you in the next video.